This is my favorite mead I have ever made. Hands down, this is my favorite mead ever. And this technically classifies as a cherry Melomel. And Melomel just means it's a mead made with fruit. And saying a cherry Melomel is just, it's a fruit mead made with cherries, in particular, tart cherries. I don't really like the flavor profile you get when using dark sweet cherries. It can almost get a cough syrupy, medicine-y type taste for me, I've noticed. A little bit of history on that. Viking blood is generally a mead made with cherries. This one is in particularly made with tart cherries. Now, so typically you would make like a traditional with just water and honey and add cherries. Firstly, let's go with the equipment you're going to need if you want to mimic this batch. You can use any kind of fermenter you want. I am starting off with a 2-gallon bucket fermenter. Other things you will need are a hydrometer, graduated cylinder, a baster, or a poor man's wine thief, a scale, a digital scale. I highly recommend weighing out your ingredients. It's number one way to stay consistent and be able to replicate recipes multiple times. So now to ingredients. This is a fairly simple recipe. That right there, that's all the ingredients you need. Well, I don't have the honey up there, but we'll get to that. So 6 quarts of antioxidant solutions tart cherry juice. You can use whatever tart cherry juice you want. I go back and forth from Knutson's. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Knutson's. I've used Great Value, and I've also used this. I don't really have a preference on what tart cherry juice, as long as it's 100% tart cherry juice, which is what this is. So 6 quarts of tart cherry juice. You're also going to need tart cherries. I got these from a friend of mine at work whose friend had a tart cherry tree, picked a bunch of them, asked if I needed them, and I said, yeah, I'll use them. So this is the last. He gave me about 10 pounds. This is the last bit. They are frozen. You need to sanitize all of your equipment, all of it. I'm only doing this batch today, so I'm just using my spray bottle as opposed from dunking it into a jug full of Star Sand. The other thing you're going to need is Camden tablets, otherwise known as sodium metabisulfite. We're using this because we are using whole fruit that came off of a tree. So what we need to do, what this video is going to show, is we're going to stone our cherries. We're going to add our cherries and our juice to our fermenter, crush these up, throw them in there. So what that will do is kill off any microbes that are on these cherries, any wild yeast, anything that could potentially infect or harm our fermentation from our yeast we are going to use. But we need to wait for 24 hours for that to take hold and to kill off all the microbes. Then we're good to pitch yeast 24 hours from when we add our Camden tablets. Very important. If you are using whole fruit from a fruit tree in your yard or from the grocery store or whatever, use a Camden tablets as kind of insurance to make sure you don't have any wild yeast that try to take over your fermentation that could cause a sour, that could cause a pellicle infection. It's been 24 hours since we put everything together, minus a few ingredients, in our fermenter right here. Pop open the lid. Now we should see a bunch of juice and some cherries. Well, I'll be. Look at that. Juice and cherries. But I still see a few things floating. I think that's just leftover remnants of the Camden tablets. So moving forward, what are we going to do? Well, since it's been 24 hours, we are in the go-ahead to add our yeast. But before we add our yeast, we are going to put a half a teaspoon. Well, actually, it's half teaspoon per gallon. Roughly 3/4 of a teaspoon of pectic enzyme. Do I need it? Probably not. I'll put a little thing right here on how much pectin is actually in tart cherries. I don't know, but I know on the last batch that I did this, I used pectic enzyme. The only thing different I'm doing on this batch as opposed from the first Viking blood batch that you saw is I'm not adding any nutrient. I'm not hydrating my yeast. We're gonna dry pitch just to see. We'll just do 1 heaping half teaspoon. 1 heaping half teaspoon of pectic enzyme. Like I said, don't know if I really need it because I don't know how much pectin is in cherries, and there's not too many cherries in here, but we just want to give it that little bit of boost. See, it doesn't matter how meticulous you are, there's going to be a few pits that make it through. Now, the reason we took the pits out, because you can ferment it with the pits in, but that can incorporate a nutty or almond type flavor. I don't want that for this. So I just removed the pits. If you want that flavor note, leave them in, but it can incorporate a nutty flavor.
Need a scale.
Why do we need a scale?
We're gonna weigh out our honey.
How much honey are we adding?
3 pounds.
Why 3 pounds?
Because that's what I did last time.
I'm trying to duplicate that as much as I can. So we're going to add 3 pounds of honey, starting right now. So there's 5 ounces. And we're just using this batch to just really use up the last little bit of my partial containers of honey. I warmed these up on my heating pad, so they pour a little bit easier. I don't even know if I have enough for 3 pounds. So I used 5 ounces of pure and simple. I'm going to make notes of all this, of what the ratios were of the honey. Let me take some notes. 1.1 pound, 6 ounces of Fisher's. Hopefully I have enough honey left from the clover honey to get to 3 pounds. Not quite. Not quite at all. That's just gonna have to do. We got 2.98 pounds of honey. A little under half a pound shy of what I was wanting, because I was wanting 3 pounds because that's what I used last time, but it'll be all right. This might end up being a step feed. If you're not sure what a step feed is, I'll put a brief little description right here. We can actually dive into that more in a future episode if you guys are interested in learning that. But now, gonna mix.
Why are we mixing?
We're mixing to incorporate our honey.
Why are we doing that?
Because we need to take a gravity reading. Without a starting gravity reading, you're not gonna know what your ABV is. You can approximate or you can calculate if you know exactly the amount of ingredients you added. If you don't weigh out your ingredients, if you don't take a gravity reading,
there is another pit.
You might not know what, well, might not. You will not know what your ABV is. And me, I like knowing my ABV, not just for ABV, but to know how the fermentation is going, to know if I need to make adjustments throughout the fermentation process.
Another pit.
I'm telling you what, guys, that is now 3 pits that I missed. Now, another thing that you can run into when using fruit like this off of a fruit tree, you can get
worms.
Little worms can be inside those fruit. I had some on the last batch that I did of this Viking blood, and what did I do? I scooped them out. There was like 2 or 3 of them. It's okay, I think. I'm still here, and I drank a couple bottles of it. That can happen. So if you see them, it's not the end of the world. Just scoop them out of there. Unless your batch is like completely riddled with them, then I wouldn't. But if it's like a 1 or 2, just scoop them out with like a strainer or something. As long as I don't see any honey on the bottom of that paddle, I know I'm fairly well incorporated and well mixed, which means I can then take my original gravity reading. This is 1.5 gallons. I added 2.9 pounds. I'm not even going to pretend like I know what my gravity is going to be at. I think it's going to be little under 1.100, so we'll go with 1.090 is where I think we're going to end up. Hydrometer, graduated cylinder, sanitized. Try to avoid pulling up any cherry solids into this sample. Like I said, if you are someone who likes cherry, this recipe's for you. 1.088, 2 points off. Not bad for just guessing. Not quite where I wanted to be. I wanted to be around 1.100. But like I said, this is 100% going to end up being a step feed. So instead of me diving more into it in a future episode, it'll be this batch. So the future videos will show you how I step feed. If you're a regular to my channel, you know exactly what yeast we're going to use. Definitely using the Lalvin K1B1116, 18% alcohol tolerant yeast. It is my go-to. I say it every time. We're only using a half a packet, and like I said, we are not hydrating. We are not using nutrient, no GoFirm, no Fermado. I think there's more than enough nutrients in here. If I need to add some, if I feel like it's lacking, I'll add some later. But right now we're just going to what they call dry pitch, which is just done. Put the lid on. Make sure you get a good seal. This is going to sit on my heating pad to give it a real big boost. So hopefully tonight when I come home from work, it's bubbling away, it's started, and then it's just a long process of waiting, however long it takes to do our first gravity reading and add our first feeding for this. Because the first batch of Viking blood did get up to 19% alcohol by volume, plus or minus a couple percentage points. That one is still aging. That was bottled in, I think, April, and I only have 2 bottles left of that, and every time I think I'm going to go for it and drink a bottle of it, my wife always tells me, you only got 2 bottles of that. You drink it, you're going to regret it. That's why we're making more. And that's why I'm taking you guys along for the ride. And I'll see you when we do our first reading on it. I'll catch you then.